Hey, Sally Atwater, you there?
I am, Miss Tara. I am. How are you today?
Good. I'm doing well. We got a big election tomorrow. The runoff between you and Molly Spearman.
We do have a big election, and I encourage all voters to get out and vote for Sally Atwater for superintendent.
Well, I have some questions for you, if you don't mind. And the first one I want to ask you about, because I have a daughter in kindergarten in our public schools, and I'm very concerned about sex ed. The listeners know that. Yeah. And I would like to know if you support the current sex ed standards, or you would like to go to the scientifically based, medically accurate sex ed standards. Which of those two do you prefer?
I actually prefer having parents opt in for sex education. It's a new idea. Well, I want to give, Tara, more power to the parents. Parents now have the opportunities to opt out.
Yes.
Parents to opt in.
Okay. How would that work exactly? You'd have to sign something for your kid to take sex ed?
Yes, that's exactly. They made the choice then. Many parents talk to their children about sex education.
Uh-huh.
So I think that they should be able to opt in for sex education.
Now, when they do opt in, Sally Atwater, what will we be teaching them? Will we be teaching them the current sex ed standards, or the new ones that are medically accurate?
The new sex ed standards that we have passed.
When did the new sex ed standards pass?
I'm not exactly sure, Tara, but I will find that out.
Okay. Do you mean the new medically accurate sex ed standards?
Yes, the new medically accurate sex ed standards. I'm really for abstinence training, too.
Okay, well, wait a minute. Hold on. Because you realize the new medically accurate sex ed standards did not pass the legislature. They went down in flames.
No, I didn't realize that. But I'm sorry. I will look
That's okay.
It.
That's okay.
I promise you I will look into it.
Yeah, they went down in flames. But you say you want abstinence, right? Abstinence-based standards?
I do. I think that's the best foolproof for pregnancy, don't you?
Yeah. No. I agree with that. So do you know, do we have abstinence-based standards in the schools right now? Do you know?
We have some abstinence-based. They do. I don't know if they're specific standards, but they talk about abstinence being one of the protections for pregnancy.
Okay, because you told me you wanted the scientifically based standards a few minutes ago. Because those are the ones that do not teach abstinence. There's no abstinence in them, Miss Atwater, but they didn't pass the legislature. So I'm still a little confused.
So I do want abstinence.
Okay, you do. So what you're saying is you want to keep the current sex ed standards, and you don't want the scientifically based ones to pass.
I will review that, I promise you, when I'm superintendent.
Okay.
Because I still think that abstinence is the best way for students to learn.
Okay. What do you think about the Common Core standards?
Well, I'm opposed to Common Core.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a special needs teacher. I've just come from the classroom 3 months ago, and I am opposed to it. I knew one set of standards didn't fit all students, especially the special needs students.
Have you read the Common Core standards?
I have read the Common Core standards, and I taught Common Core standards and had some training, especially at the elementary school level. Now, once I'm superintendent, I want to focus more on all the standards.
You say you taught Common Core standards at the elementary level. Where did you teach them? Because I'm just curious, because your opponent is running an ad that says you were just recently working in Washington and moved directly here to run for this position.
No, ma'am. I was teaching in Colleton County. That's in Walterboro. I taught in the city of Walterboro.
Mm-hmm.
I taught in a rural school in Walterboro in Colleton County. And so I'm a special needs teacher where we write IEPs, but I had to use the Common Core standards to prepare activities for my students. But it was also based on their goals, too.
Okay, so you didn't just move here to run for this office. Then you're saying, like your opponent says in the commercial running on WTMA, you have been living here?
I have been living here.
Okay. When was the last time you worked in Washington?
I worked in Washington about 3 years ago. I worked on the Committee on Education and Workforce in the House of Representatives on the Republican side. And that gave me one of the reasons I wanted to run, because I knew I could work with legislators. I've actually been building momentum. I've got 23 South Carolina House and Senate Republicans that have endorsed me. People like Larry Grooms and Kevin Bryant, Mike Thayer. So,
I've got a question for you, Sally Atwater. There are two Common Core standards that will be implemented in this state next year, starting next year, that were scheduled to be implemented and still will be if nobody stops them. Particularly, the superintendent will weigh in a lot on that. There are Common Core standards in two subjects that will be implemented. Can you tell me what those two subjects are?
I sure can.
What are they?
LA and math.
All right.
But I will tell you this: Common Core will be used for the 14-15 year.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Zase is actually getting the first crack now at eliminating Common Core, and he's rewriting them now. But I will review them once I'm elected.
I've got to say, Sally Atwater, I have to hand this to you. You are more familiar with the Common Core standards than Molly Spearman, your opponent, who couldn't answer basic questions about them on this show, including which ones would be implemented, and admitted she had not read them. But I got a question for you. You got some negative press last week, when you went on that Spartanburg Word radio station. You didn't seem very familiar with sex ed standards and what we had in our schools. And I just asked you a question about them, and you didn't know you didn't know what the standards we were using in our schools were. How come you didn't look that up in the meantime after all the bad publicity you've gotten? I'm just curious.
Well, I did look it up and all, but I obviously I need to. But I apologize to our viewers and my voters, and I'll tell you why. I got the voters distracted from the biggest issues in our race.
Tell me, Sally Atwater, what are those issues?
Common Core, choice.
Common Core, and I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Common Core and school choice, giving more power to parents.
What would you like to see, Sally Atwater, done as far as school choice?
Well, I believe in school choice of all different kinds. I thought the tax credits to corporations that invest in scholarships for special needs students is a great way to go, and I'd like to see that program expanded. I want to give more choice to homeschooling, charter schools, private and religious schools, and virtual schools, because contrary to my opponent, I believe competition is a good thing. And you know what, Tara? I came back from Washington. I didn't think education had changed all these years. And I thought that we really need to have more choice for parents now. And then I opposed Common Core because one size does not fit all. Certainly not in that special needs classroom. I worked in Washington, and I saw that encroaching Washington standards. We don't need the same standards in South Carolina that students in South Dakota are using. We need South Carolina standards.
Well, I have to hand it to you. I have to give it to you, Sally Atwater. You are a lot more familiar with those Common Core standards than your opponent, Molly Spearman, is. Let me ask you this. I'm just curious on vouchers. How far would you go with that? Should regular parents of average children be allowed to get vouchers and use vouchers?
So I really like money following the student. We did that in special ed. Many years ago, we had institutions, and that's where our special needs population was. Mm-hmm. You're using now money follows that person with disabilities, and they're living in community life. So this is another way. Money following the child or the student is a better way for parents. Parents make the best decision for their students, their children.
Sally Atwater, one more question for you going into the runoff race tomorrow, GOP primary. And again, you're running, of course, against Molly Spearman. Why are you a better candidate for the job than Molly Spearman?
Well, I grew up in Union, South Carolina. My mother worked for the Union County Schools for over 49 years, and she said to be a teacher, and I did that. I went to Washington, where I got most of my training, and I saw how the federal government is trying to take over education, which belongs at the local level. I may not look or talk like a lobbyist, but I think voters really want a difference in the Department of Education. They want a fresh, conservative voice from the classroom. And I want to give more power back to parents. My opponent clearly wants to give more power back to the government. She's tax and spend. She's been in the state all these years, and education hasn't changed at all. We still have failing schools, generation after generation. Parents need choice.
Well, amen to that, Sally Atwater. I just want to wish you the best of luck tomorrow in the Superintendent of Education primary runoff.
Well, Tara, I just want to encourage people to get out to vote and vote for me. You know, runoffs have very low voter participation.
Yeah, they do.
And we really need to encourage people to vote.
All right. Sally Atwater, thank you so much for joining us today on 1250 WTMA.